So today we're making apple pie with 18th century cook Mike. Thank you for walking us through basically an apple pie that our forefathers would have eaten here in New England, right?
It is absolutely possible that George Washington or John Adams or somebody like that would have eaten an apple pie like this.
Exciting. Let's dig in.
All right, so we'll start with the crust so we can just get that prepped. We've got our pie plate here. These are beautiful pie plates from Old Sturbridge Village, but redware would have been very important in this time period. We've got some apples here. These are some of my favorite apples.
Beautiful.
These are orange pippins, and we'll peel a couple of those. In front of us here, we also have some sugar. This is our sugar cone.
This is sugar.
Yes. In the 18th century, your sugar didn't come in a bag. It came in a cone form, and you would have to process it. So here's our sugar nippers, and you can go ahead and hold those. They're not a dental tool, which is what a lot of people think. Yeah, you would just nip some off the bottom. So I don't know.
Should I do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so just like this?
There we go.
Oh.
So you would take that, and then you would get that amount that you needed in a mortar and pestle, and then you would grind it up. Of course, we need to peel our apples, and we don't have the typical apple peelers that we have now. Those were a product of the Industrial Revolution. So we just have to peel our apples the way they would have in the 18th century, which is just very slowly and trying not to cut your fingers. But this is what I mean when I say people took their time with food in this time period. The industrial apple peeler hadn't been invented yet. The Industrial Revolution was a generation or more away. So, you know, these meditative tasks, they're things that humans don't do as much anymore. But if you sit with a pile of apples, your favorite music on, cup of tea.
Sounds nice.
And yeah. It doesn't make for great television, but 1 minute to peel an apple, and we've got our first one. Now, 20 more.
Yeah.
We've got our apples, we've got to core them. And again, another device that maybe you don't find in your kitchen today is this wonderful tin apple corer. So again, this can be a little dangerous, so you want to have a steady space to do it, but that's essentially it. All right, we're cutting a whole bunch of these up. And yes, in the 18th century, everything's done by hand. No mechanical wonders just yet.
And how many apples are you using for this particular pie, generally?
So for a pie like this, I'm using probably 1.5 pounds. And then with our crust here, it's an all butter crust. And in the 18th century, all butter crust would probably have been a rarity. And this is sort of where I do the crossover. It's like, okay, I like an all butter crust. Not everyone likes lard, and that would have been the preferred cooking fat for most people in this area because hogs were plentiful, and especially a lot of the Scottish settlers. I sometimes do 50-50 lard and butter, which actually produces a flaky crust, but also has that flavor of lard because believe it or not, it tastes great. It just has bad marketing. We'll get to rolling this. I don't know.
Where your exercise comes in,
just
right?
a little bit, you know. And again, I find with the all butter crust that they're a little harder to work with. Do you want to grate some nutmeg over the top?
I would love.
All right.
So this is a nutmeg.
That is a nutmeg, yeah.
So how much am I going for here?
You know, nutmeg is a personal choice. And if you like nutmeg, you can go for a lot, but you know,
I'm gonna go for a moderate.
I think so.
You tell me what moderate is.
Just a nice perfuming over the top.
Okay.
That should be great. And again, as this bakes, the nutmeg will release those smells and really perfume everything. Yeah.
Oh, that's
You can
nice.
smell it. Yeah. All right. We'll get the top on this, and we'll get to baking behind us there. So, and again, in the 18th century, a lot of these pies were they were a means of preservation. If you couldn't get your apples into cider or made into applesauce, you got it into a pie. At least it would make it 1 or 2 weeks without refrigeration. So, and if mold developed on top, you just got rid of it. and scoop out the
That's what I
inside. You know, I put some cinnamon on this before. I coated it in sugar and cinnamon to leach out some of the liquid.
Yes.
Because liquid will make a soggy bottom, and we do not want a soggy bottom. And so we took some of that, and so this has already been perfumed with that cinnamon.
Lovely.
And yeah, this cinnamon here is beautiful imported cinnamon, and you would be able to get this in a Boston port in 1770s. I simply like to take the edges here and cut them off. You can make some nice apple designs on top if you want, or you can bake some hand pies, as I mentioned before.
With the leftovers.
With the leftovers. Nothing would go to waste. You know, as I mentioned before, these peels would be boiled down with more sugar to make some jellies. And most apples in this time period are going into cider production anyway. They're going, because that's the way to preserve it for the longest amount of time. And you know, this agricultural society that we're living in is not unlike the Shire from Tolkien. And I like to make that connection because my daughter and I just finished reading those, and I think they teach us a lot about slowing down and taking time. And that's sort of what, you know, a lot of people call me Bilbo Baggins with my, they do, and I don't mind the connection because it's about a simpler time, about slowing down, taking care with food and with people that you care about. So that's what we got. We're gonna get some vent holes in that, and we're gonna throw it right into the oven.
Beautiful, look at that.
And this is the one that we did last night, but this is our stunt pie. It's slightly bigger, but you know, the comments on the internet will be like, "Dude, that's a different pie." Don't worry,
It got bigger in the
they'll get
cooking
more
process.
views that way. No, yeah. So this is with the same apples. We did a bottom crust on this one, so there's a nice bottom crust. I think a pie becomes a pie with a top and a bottom crust. Otherwise, you're looking at a tart or perhaps something else.
I would
But
agree.
let's see. You know, it's always a decision with a pie. What face do you go for? But we'll go here. Do a big slice. That looks great. And you can actually see the pinkness of the apples in there. That's really great.
That's beautiful. That
It's
is absolutely
great.
beautiful.
So it's the same apples and the same crust.
It's nice
so
and thick too.
really nice and thick,
Yeah.
and we use, you know, there's a lot of liquid produced by apples, so, you know, we put some flour in there to kind of let it stabilize. So we've got this beautiful pie, and please allow me.
Oh, thank you so much.
And we'll
Look
try
at that
some of this.
Beautiful. That is delicious.
And I don't add a lot of sugar
Yeah.
because I really
The
like
apples
the apples.
do the job. Yeah.
And that's what they would have done. They typically, you know, sugar would have been more expensive. It's harder to process. So they would have used alternatives like honey or molasses, or even throw in some raisins.
No.
Just throw in raisins and no other sugar. You let the apples come through and do their thing. They're sweet enough
Yes.
for this time period. Maybe our modern palate needs some whipped cream or something on top, but
little ice cream.
a little ice cream.
And you were right, like the apples, obviously they soften, but they still very much hold their shape nicely in this pie.
Yeah, and again, you kind of, depending on what you're baking, you work with the apple that works best. And a lot of people like to put a mix of apples in their pies. You know, it's kind of like a single malt scotch. I like to know what this apple tastes like because, you know, as a culinary artist, I like to play around with those flavors.
Yeah.
So.
I will give you the
Oh, thank
the
you.
handshake.
Yes, bow.